Darin, thanks so much for joining me on the Suffolk Construction podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I
Awesome.
every now and then I get in the middle of doing something, and I don't say I have to stay up late. I say I get to because I get really into it. So I had a late night going into this morning, and then apparently it like downpoured all day. And when I woke up, it was like it was a beautiful day, so it worked out nicely.
That's
Um,
great.
but hey, and now I get to talk to you. So this day
Yeah.
is just awesome. Let's dig in. First,
Okay.
would love to hear about your career journey because I know you spent over 20 years at Turner before now being at Suffolk, but kind
Yeah.
of talk me through that journey at Turner leading up to your current role at Suffolk. What excites you about this next chapter as well, if you can work that in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the part you don't know is I actually started kind of a unique path, right? I started actually in 1989 on the tool side of building semiconductor fabs. So the equipment that goes to make the fabs or to make the computer chips. That's where I started in 1989. Then I spent 10 years over in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, installing tools in these fabs around the world. And I came back to the U.S. and that's when I started with Turner in Boston, actually in 2001. So the next 23 and a half years I spent with them. Mainly semiconductor was my biggest thing. And then I was in Boston 6 years, Oregon 6 years, upstate New York with Global Foundries about a couple of years. And then I did data centers, managing the Meta account for the US the last 6 years. And then decided to shake things up a little bit, try something new. So jumped over to Suffolk about 3 months ago now and loving every minute of it.
So when you go into a new role like that, what do you hope to like? How do you hope to kick the, or I guess in your case, how did you get the ball rolling in terms of learning how maybe they do things,
Yeah.
bringing your unique perspective as well? Like, how does that transition work?
Really for me it was jumping the deep end, right? I had to get to know the teams here. They're really smart people here, so it's figuring out who had done semiconductor before and maybe who hadn't, and kind of try and find that expertise within the company, and then really get out and see the rest of the company. It's an amazing company. I've been impressed. Every time I turn around, it just blows me away. But John Fish is a CEO, just an incredible human being. And really, he kind of gave me the open door, blank check, whatever you want to call it. Said, come do what you do, take your time, do it the right way, find the right people. Don't try and jump in the deep end, which a lot of people do, and take on more than they can do. But let's build this thing together so it lasts, past my career, and the next career we have something to look back on.
As unique as all of these like CEOs are, there's so many common traits though that the best ones have in terms of find the right people, let them do their thing,
Yeah,
give them that timeline, not like immediately snap your fingers and things start happening, like lead into it. I'd say that's one of the key things I've noticed from the most successful CEOs. And then also like this just persistence no matter what, and self-belief that it's like that, so much optimism, right, in what you're doing too, and I think that becomes infectious for everyone.
yeah, I would
um,
agree. And for me, anyways, the biggest thing, I met him a couple times. If you ever met the guy, he's unbelievable. His energy is off the charts. But really, the big thing that stuck with me is his no fault culture. Right? He's like, we're all going to make mistakes. We're going to learn together. I'm in the long haul. You're in the long haul. Let's make this thing successful. And so that's exactly what you're saying. I think he's just an amazing human being.
so as it relates to semiconductors and advanced technology, how does this align with the company's long-term vision? You said, he's like, build your team, build
Yep.
into it.
Yep.
um, what are your thoughts? Obviously you're a couple months in, but what are your thoughts on how um, having some focus on the semiconductors and advanced technology will play into Suffolk's maybe greater vision?
Yeah, and I think that it plays perfect, like I was talking about. The one thing John too or Suffolk did was Suffolk Tech. It's called. It's a venture capital firm that arm of the, and I know you know about it, it's an arm of the company that's the largest in the world for investment in construction, and it's a proactive approach, right? Rather than going to this, going off the shelf and getting something that's already been created, he invests in companies around the world to create this technology and then use it on Suffolk projects. So really, it parlays perfectly into high tech, right? Because a lot of these systems are solutions for problems the construction industry has, especially in semiconductor. It's so sophisticated and such tough buildings to build already. when we can streamline that process, it makes a lot of sense. And John has really doubled down on technology, right? He's that's his biggest thing. I mean, we have 29 data analysts. It's all they do is crunch data and figure out how to make a better, mousetrap. It's impressive. So I think it molds right into to Suffolk's vision immediately.
I'll tell you, Darin, I rarely have regrets, but one of my regrets was not getting to the boost like
Yeah,
demo day
cohort.
this
Yeah,
fall for Suffolk Tech.
yeah,
Uh, I'm hoping to go next year because it looked like a great time. Lots of good companies. I've met a lot of the like alum like that come from that program, which has been
yep,
great. Like rugged robotics, I think was one
yep,
of them, right?
yep.
Um, and a few others. But yeah, I think it's incredible like the Suffolk Tech, and then how that plays into Suffolk's greater vision, right? And staying ahead of the curve by investing in those companies early and fairly often too, right? Not just like
Yeah.
you know what's the thing everyone likes to do? They like to call themselves a VC firm and then make like an investment every couple of years, and
Yeah,
what's happening there? So
yeah. No, it's a long term vision, and like I said, he's doubled down on it every year. He invests more and believes in it more.
when we look at Darren, the national importance of, I want to shift focus
Yeah, yeah,
back to kind of semiconductors. When we look at the national importance of semiconductors, why do you believe it's crucial for the U.S. to become a global hub for semiconductor manufacturing? And um, it kind of ties into what you were saying a little bit, but maybe just a kind of a step two to elaborate a little more on it. Like, what role, if like this ends up happening, right? What role do you hope Suffolk plays in
yeah.
that global hub?
Yeah, I think a couple of reasons. One of them was I think one of the things we found out during COVID, obviously, was that the supply chain's pretty volatile, right? Is the amazing part, and I get geeked out on numbers. You have to forgive me, but most people don't realize that computer chips, for example, right? Every car has 3 to 5 thousand chips in it, and that's just a car, right? And everything we use has so many chips in it. And when the supply chain shut down and we couldn't import anything or export anything, it kind of came to a screeching halt. And if you look back when I started my career, I think we did 70 to 80% of the world's chips in the U.S. That's now flipped. So 80% is done in South Korea, Taiwan, and China, and the U.S. has about 11% roughly. So the rest is Japan mainly. But so that's turned it on its ear. And I think this is my personal opinion. I think the political instability or stability is pretty rough in some of those places, and it turns the world, right. The technology and the chips mainly do that, and we gotta figure a way to onshore so we're not so vulnerable. I think it really highlighted the problems we have.
Yeah, when you look at there were companies that you hoped would have even been more prominent in those built and then maybe lagged behind like Intel being one of them, right? Like
Yeah,
um obviously now they have a new CEO, or their
gonna have.
interim CEO, right?
Yeah,
That's trying to play, and they're looking for the next person. But I completely agree. When you see, I mean, just look at the stock market too, because of all these these semiconductors are outside of the United States. Like one, uh, like just the most minor political movement in one of these other countries, it affects the market as it relates to these semiconductors. It's super
yeah. I
interesting.
mean, sorry. If you look at the martial law in South Korea, it was almost talked about, right? And China talk about invading Taiwan, and I mean, I don't know if that's going to all happen, but God forbid it does. We're in trouble, right? And,
Yeah,
and I think that's the vulnerability we're talking about is, and you talked about Intel. Intel's funny because I started I mean, I'm dating myself, so pardon me, but when I started, it was back to the Pentium chips, right? And it was all done in Hillsboro, Oregon, at Ronler Acres. That was our R&D in Santa Clara. And for the last 10 years, nobody built a fab in the US. I mean, Global Foundries is the last one in 2014, roughly, and nobody built anything. So I think we were behind the curve, and COVID was a wake up call. So I think a lot of people are like, the CHIPS Act, as you know, came through, which is helping quite a bit, which is incentivizes people. But it only funds 10% roughly of what people are spending. So I think that's been another impetus for change and getting stuff onshoring, I think.
and Darren, I just want to add. You're not dating yourself. People are going to be confused how you've worked this long in the industry, and it's not going. to They're going to try to add two and two together, and
Yeah,
so you're totally fine there. Uh, it's when we look at the industry challenges, Darren, because like these large scale construction projects, like these
yeah,
semiconductor facilities, are notoriously complex.
yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges kind of facing the industry in building out these um, facilities? And then I guess I know it's still early, but how do you view it's a little different than the last question I asked you. Like, how do you
Yeah.
feel Suffolk will help in the build out of these complex facilities?
Yeah. Um, I think one that some people talk about, some people don't, is trades, right? We're in our whole world of hurt for trade partners and for the skilled trades. Because I mean, the trade, if you look at the numbers, roughly, 41% of the trades are going to be retired by 2030, right? And we're not bringing enough in. So we got to find a way to incentivize people to join the trades, and I think part of that is getting the message out, right? I mean, most people 6-figure salaries, right? Skip college, go right into it, no debt. There's a lot of good things that are in the construction industry that people don't know about. I think we stink at marketing ourselves as an industry to get people excited about it. But I think part of that is the technology, right? The newer generation, the younger generation. I've got 3 girls who are the younger generation. They it's what they want to do. They want to do stuff that's really cool and leading edge, and that's how we got to bring them in. And you talk about the next generation of fabs. These things are massive, right? That's the scale is what people can't do. I mean, you hear the numbers are crazy, right? Micron's talking about 100 billion in New York and 50 billion here and 50 billion. That's a lot of money, but they're millions and millions of square feet. So that's why there's a need for somebody like a Suffolk, who's a really really good technical builder, who builds really cool stuff, and who can come in and partner with other people and build those relationships to support everybody. Because there's not a GC, I don't care who you are in the world, that can build 5 million square feet and $20 billion buildings, right? We need partners, we need relationships, and I think that's where Suffolk shines, right? It's part of their core values, it's who they are, and that's really what I think we're going to develop. And part of that, I said before, is given the opportunity to have the time to build those relationships and see how we fit into that, I think will be really good for Suffolk and for the industry.
And I guess from a construction technique and innovation standpoint,
Yeah.
in order to meet the high standards of these semiconductor facilities, what do you envision happening?
Well, I think I mean, it's been happening a while, but offsite manufacturing's got to be huge. Everything's being modularized, so you can bring it in. Better quality, better conditions, offsite. Bring it in as a module is a big thing, and it's really just getting the mundane activity. That's what AI is doing a lot of. We're finding is Kaya AI is one of what we use for like procurement. It gets a lot of the monotony and the tedious stuff out of it, and repetitive work. Historically procurement's always been just a pain in the behind because procurement logs and sub lists and bids and all this stuff, and that integrates all that and makes it seamless, which helps us quite a bit. I mean, the reality is, and like I said, I like numbers, but so the technology that we're in right now is some of the most sophisticated in the world, right? We're talking 2 nanometer they're talking about now. I don't know if you know what nanometer is, but one hair is 80,000 nanometers. So if you do the math, it's subatomic, right? It's crazy, the technology. So trying to get that technology into the construction process for vibration, cleanliness, all that stuff is just key to what we're doing. That's a long-winded answer, sorry.
No, no, that was not that. That was a perfect answer. uh, when you look at a big thing I wanted to ask you here today is, and then this will be the last like semiconductor related
Yeah, no worries.
question, but that space moves so fast. So how do you personally? You've had a focus on this space for a while. Like, how do you stay ahead of such a rapidly evolving industry to make sure you're not missing anything?
It's a relationship business, I think. It's 100% relationships, and it was refreshing for me. I was at a company for a really long time and built a lot of relationships, and then moving on to do something different, it was nice to rekindle a lot of those friendships, relationships, and really get to know the people and get back in the industry more in depth. And that's what I'm finding is I've been spending a lot of my time just going around the country and reintroducing myself to the people I've known for the year over the years. And that's kind of it's such an amazingly small world, especially this industry because it's so specialized that I mean I've ran into people that I knew 35 years ago. It's crazy, and they're still in the industry, and it's just a small group of people, and that's how I think it's just like almost like word of mouth.
Yeah, this is the common thing I keep hearing over and over again, and I completely agree. Across any industry, right? It doesn't just have to be construction. With the advancements in technology, and especially where AI is heading,
Yeah,
relationships always mattered. They will matter even more because the ability to implement a new technology or a technology that is similar to something else will keep progressing there. But like without that relationship, like you were saying, we miss out on key pieces of information. And also, just people want those good relationships. We crave those as human beings, right?
yeah.
Um, so super interesting. All right, I told you that was the last question on semiconductor, and it was. Beyond that, beyond semiconductors,
Yeah.
what other areas in advanced technology or infrastructure is Suffolk exploring right now that you can share with us?
That's, I mean, in my world, so we have what we call centers of excellence, which is advanced technology, which is mine, which is mainly semiconductor. But semiconductor meaning anything, almost anything with the clean room, like battery, life sciences. We have a division that does that, but I'll help in that. Mission critical, just kind of be help out. But my main focus is semiconductor and battery and dry rooms and clean rooms and stuff like that. That's my main focus.
I love it.
Yeah,
And okay, a few months in, last question for you.
sure.
A few months in, what's really next? So you've really after a couple months, right? You start to get your footing, build some good, you continue to build on your good relationships, kind of see how Suffolk does things. What's
Yeah.
next for you personally within the company that really excites you?
Building a team, right? It's getting the right people on board, and I'm more about people than you know. I always it's going to sound arrogant. I don't mean it to, but I mean I think you can teach people some of this stuff as long as they've got their heart in it, they've got the desire, and they've got the drive. That's really what I'm looking for. Somebody you want to work with, somebody you want to go have a drink with, somebody just hang out with. I mean, plus you can work with, right? So that's the excitement for me is really going out and finding the right team, building that team, figuring out how we can get in and make a difference. I like I said before, I think it's relationship based, and we're going to go narrow and deep. You know, we're not going to go in, like I said, and build the $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar fab. It's more of, do we start out building, the wastewater treatment facility, the smaller facilities, the cubs, the pubs, the smaller stuff, and just show people what we can do. And I think once they see the technology driven by Suffolk, the people side of it, the core values we have. I mean, I just think it speaks to expanding this market, right, and expanding the people coming into the market too. I mean, we're as Suffolk, we're getting back in, starting in the high schools and trying to get people interested in construction, right? Show them the capacity, the what's out there, and changing the perception. I mean, construction used to be like a bad word, like, oh, I'm in construction, oh, you swing a hammer. I've heard that my whole career, but I'm not. I think that's fine. I don't. I make a good living. I'm very happy with what I do. I love it. So how do we get other people to see that same opportunity?
And I think would also be helpful is framing it that like look at you and look at many others, right? That construction provides a path where you don't just always have to be like on the job site. Like you can do that for a while, like as long as you want, right? And
Yeah,
then there are other. I think if people know there's also the opportunities to go kind of in the onto the like the corporate side of things where they're also like shaping things from a different angle.
yeah,
I think a lot of people would have interest in that too, and I think that goes part to what you were saying in the education and going to these schools, letting people know that there's actually lots of opportunities in this space, and you can kind of make what you want of your career if you're willing to put the work in, right?
yeah, absolutely. And the irony is my daughter works at Intel, so it's come full circle.
Full
Where I
circle.
started.
I like that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Um,
it's great.
Darin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Look
Yeah,
forward to hopefully doing this in person at some point. And
sure.
we'll definitely stay in touch. But I'm pumped to know that you're on the Suffolk team, and it'll be great continuing these conversations in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared.